Let's take a look at a very unusual little power supply. This one puts out 16 volts at just 70 milliamps. And I'll have to zoom in this because it's very, very small. But the main feature is you can short circuit this safely, and it's just as well you can because that's exactly how it works. It is designed to be short circuited because it's providing power to a network. So let me show you a quick doodle of the type of network that it's designed to be used on. So it is a power supply for a DALI network, DALI, which stands for Digital Addressable Lighting Interface. And these networks have multiple nodes along just a run of ordinary cable. It's worth mentioning that unlike DMX and other lighting control protocols where it's screened cable and it relies on very high speed data and keeping things well separated from the main supply, the system that this uses standard mains wiring, and you can chuck it into the same trunking as other mains wires with just single insulation, and as such, although it is effectively extra low voltage, it can't be treated as something like SELV. It has to be treated more like an FELV, functional extra low voltage, because it lacks the full isolation. I mean, it shouldn't be able to give you a shock, but you just never know. So in this case, we might have a power supply. That's this little thing. It's so small. I can put it right there where the power supply is. And you might have switches. Now, I say switch, it has to be active electronics, but it's usually something like, say, for instance, you could have a little switch plate with multiple buttons on it, maybe even a display, and you can set scenes. You can program scenes in and then just press the button and it will go to that scene. And these units don't just communicate in the network, they are also potentially powered by it as long as they draw very low current. Another example is a passive infrared detector. Let me show you one of them. This is a DALI. There's the two connections there for the network. And it powers itself from network 2. And this is a high bay passive infrared detector. It's actually quite unusual because the lens here can be zoomed. If I unscrew it like this, it actually zooms out a bit, and it is designed to be focused between a sort of high level and low level and change the sensitivity and range that way. But then you might have the lights themselves, and they could be anything. They could be just a high bay light, or it could be in the past, because this is an old standard, it could be a fluorescent fitting, or it could be these days it would be an LED strip light perhaps. And you can set up to 64 addresses, where you can set 64 items on the network. And these could be put in separate addresses, and then you could, from the switch, you could determine which one's lit. The other thing that can happen with this is the power supply might actually be built into a light, and that might happen, well, that might happen with, say, hold on, street light. And you might have the DALI network coming out with power to dusk or RF sensor that's picking up information from a central control system. So the way this is actually that you send data on this is that the network at the entrance to each item, like say for instance this item, it goes through a bridge rectifier because it's not polarized. It doesn't matter which way around the wires go. It's a slow, rugged network. And it goes through a bridge rectifier, and then you might have, say for instance, for the items to receive data, you might have a resistor and an LED to an opto-isolator, because everything should be kept separate from that usually. But to send data back from a light, it will have maybe just a very simple optocoupler that just bridges out these two connections. And by shunting them, this thing will limit the current. And by shunting it in a series of pulses, the item can actually signal data to the other items in the network. It's a very interesting network, very rugged, quite slow. It's electrician proof, which is kind of important. And it's quite widely used. Okay, let's zoom down this. Now this has a very odd construction. I don't know if you're going to see this right, but if I shine a light in here, you'll see there's a circuit board and a little pip in there. And the reason for that is they've literally slid the circuit board in, and it's gone up a little ramp, and then it's latched over that. And it means that I've been trying to get the circuit board out of this by pushing that down, but it doesn't push down. It's flexed the circuit board up and then it's clipped down over it. So I think the only way we're going to get into this is destructively. Normally I'm not a huge fan of that, but I don't want to drill it out in case it actually damages the circuit board. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clip this off. And then I'm going to just nibble my way down here. It's also an interesting way to see how this is assembled because it's an unusual approach to this. So let's widen this out a little bit, trying not to damage any components in the vicinity. Tricky. Messy. I don't normally destroy things like this, but in this instance, the very construction of it is such that it is just, well, the only way in is to do this. Right, now I'm in there. Can I get a spudger under there? Or a screwdriver? Can I get it under and just dink that out? It's going out. Hold on. Where is the screwdriver to shove it in the right direction? Is it coming out? Or is it latched in elsewhere? It might be latched in elsewhere. Let me just lever it and see what happens. Are we getting anywhere? No, we're not. Am I going to have to go further? Is this very, very well clipped in? Oh, there it goes. There it goes. Right. Okay. Well, you know what happens now. Aside from the fact that we look into the bottom of this and see that little ramping system, there it is. Just that little stud. Oh, that's way too bright. Just that little stud at the bottom there. Just that latches that circuit board when it's slidden on the little guide rails. That's an interesting approach to this. Right, tell you what, I shall reverse engineer this and then we can explore the circuitry. One moment, please. Reverse engineering is complete. Let's explore. I'll zoom in on this a little bit. So this took a while to reverse engineer. There were two reasons for that. It's got surface mount components on one side and surface mount components on the other side, which makes it pretty hard to trace through because you're trying to probe both sides of a small circuit board. But also it's got some very, very weird circuitry in the output. And when we get there, you can actually assess yourself what you think it does and we'll compare our thoughts on that. So here's the main incoming supply. It's got a metal oxide varistor, it's got a rectifier on the other side, a smoothing capacitor, a little inductor for filtering this capacitor on the other side, and then it's just the usual circuitry in the back of the circuit board for the switch mode power supply. On the other side, we have the rectified supply, and then some current sensing circuitry, and also some unusual polarity sensing circuitry. There's a clue. I shall show you the other side of this. So on the mains input side, we've got these zigzaggy tracks covered in a blob of stuff. I guess this is their implementation of a HRC fuse on the circuit board where they've put the glue over blowable tracks, maybe to absorb inrush current, not sure. But that's maybe to stop it splashing everywhere when they blow. Odd. There's a bridge rectifier. There is a ceramic capacitor across that. Keep in mind this is full mains voltage. It's seeing a peak of about 350 volts. Well, it's seeing 350 volts roughly because that's the electrolytic capacitor there. Here's the switch mode power supply chip. It turns out it's a fairly standard one. We've got two 10 ohm resistors in parallel for 5 ohms as current sense. We've got the bootstrap capacitors and resistors, and then we've got a little current feedback potential divider. Okay, let's go to the power supply schematic first. So I have adjusted their schematic to show the metal oxide varistor. They show a couple of resistors, fusible resistors, in line with the rectifier. I get the feeling this is an old chip. They're showing the old style resistors. But there's a bridge rectifier, filter capacitor, little inductor, and then the death beam smoothing capacitor, 400 volt, 2.2 microfarad. It doesn't have to be high because it's only rated about 1 watt, this power supply. When you power it up, this capacitor, well, it's two little capacitors, charge via these resistors, high value resistors, so that after a slight delay, the circuitry will start kicking into action. When it does, it starts pulsing the primary side via the chip, and notice it's marked collector and emitter, it's not MOSFET based. And there's the current sense with the two 10 ohm resistors in parallel for the 5 ohm sense resistor. When it starts building up magnetic field and collapsing it, it puts power over to the secondary side, but it also puts power back to the feedback circuit, which is used for two purposes. Via this diode and low value resistor, it keeps that capacitor topped up to power the chip, but it also has this divider here, this potential divider, which will reflect the voltage seen on the secondary side, so they can set, with these resistors, they can tune it to the desired 16 volts in the output. It's worth mentioning that on the circuit board they've got a couple of positions for resistors in this value here. I'm just going to double check that. Yes, that's those there. So they're in parallel so that they can effectively, these two resistors in parallel, if they choose that option, they can fine tune the voltage in the output. Now we've got the diode and a smooth capacitor and a little load resistor, but it's slightly different from that. Let's take a look at the other part of this schematic. Lots and lots of filtering. So there is the secondary, and it's going via this diode, just a high-speed silicon diode, not a Schottky, to this 10 microfarad polarized capacitor. Not quite sure, is it tantalum? Not sure, it's this little capacitor here. It's not an electrolytic. There is a 4K7 resistor across that, potentially just providing a slight load, and it's worth mentioning there is a little snubber network across that diode, but I don't know if that's because they left the option open to use a Schottky diode, because you have to put a little snubber across them to protect against high voltage spikes from the switching of the transformer. Or it could just be noise reduction. Now, on the output, there's also a little similar filter, 100 ohm, and a capacitor across the output here, and a 300k sort of load resistor. Lots of little random extra filtery bits. Okay. But anyway, here we have our 16 volts going out. To allow other things on the network to short this out, because keep in mind this is designed to be shorted out completely. To allow that, the current flows through the load, through this diode, through this MOSFET, and then through this current sense resistor. If the current remains in the region of about, say, 70 milliamps, which is what this is rated at, the voltage across this resistor will not rise to 0.6 volts, which is a critical threshold. But if it goes up to 80 milliamps, as in it being shorted out in pulses by the data being sent, the voltage across this resistor here will rise to 0.6 volts. When it does, it turns via this capacitor and via this resistor, it turns this transistor on, and that transistor then pulls the gate down progressively to the point that it limits the current to, it acts like a variable resistor, it operates in the linear region, and it limits the current to that 80 milliamps. So it means that the other devices can safely short that supply, and it will limit the current flowing through them in the process of doing that. This 10k resistor is a bit that provides current to the gate for its normal operation, and there is a 15 volt Zener diode across the gate to the 0 volt rail. I shall just write 0 volt, since that's the output 0 volt. And that Zener diode is really to cap the voltage that the gate can go up to, just in case external voltage is perhaps applied onto this, because a lot of the circuitry here seems to be based to protect it against what's going on the output, because this is an unusual power supply in the sense that it is connected to a network that is running through mains cabling for a long distance. There is a little filter capacitor on the gate to its source, and then there's this. Now here's a puzzle, right? It took me a while to work out what that circuitry was for. I think I've worked it out. I'll let you decide. If you want, you can pause the video at the moment. Think about what this circuitry is doing that can also turn this transistor on, and therefore turn the MOSFET off. Tell me what you think. Pause, go down into the comments, leave a note of what you think those components are for, and then you can start the video again. But I shall now tell you my thoughts, and we'll compare it to what you've put in the comments if you did that. I reckon the reason for this Zener diode and this resistor here is that if someone connects another DALI device on that also has a power supply, and because it's a non-polarized network and it can be run in just the same color wires, if it gets reverse polarity, and this is my guess here, It's possible that an external supply could put a negative onto the plus rail here and a positive onto this rail here. And that could potentially, if it passed through the circuitry, it could potentially damage components, particularly this capacitor here. So what I reckon is that this componentry is that if that happens, the positive flows down through this diode, through this zener, because it's above the threshold of, say, the 16 volt, whatever, turns on the transistor and effectively turns off this MOSFET and protects it from actually backfeeding into the rest of the circuitry. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think about that. But that is it. It's an interesting little power supply that is fairly novel. Particularly, I'm intrigued by the fact that this is literally designed to slide in and latch into this when you put it in. All the components have been kept clear for that reason. It's quite novel. But there we have it. Where is the little slide rails? Oh, there's the little guide rails. And if I pushed this back in again firmly, it would latch when it came to the back. Interesting. That would, of course, involve me lining it up properly. Oh, I don't want to push it in, though, because it will latch. But quite a neat construction. And it's the usual, the lighting industry loves these, the little push-in connectors, because they save time. You can just shove wires in very quickly when you're mass-producing these things. Oh, one other thing that's worth mentioning. Where is the other picture there? The capacitor has a thermal pad under it. I don't know if they're just used that as a double-sided sticky pad effectively, or they're trying to keep it cool. I don't really know why they've done that, because the circuitry's not going to run hot. It's very strange that they've done that. But there we have it. A DALI power supply that is designed to be short-circuited out to allow devices on the same network that it's powering to communicate with each other by shorting it out. Quite a novel little thing.